In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, and never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you.
Hey, everyone. Okay, so the camera setup is not exact the way I need it, but we are on the new computer today, so cross our fingers we won't have any buffering problems. I just finally got the camera working this afternoon. So welcome to Surviving Together on our new setup. I'm hoping the tech gods are with us today. Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. Hey, Crystal, how are you doing today? I hope you are having a good day. I have been fighting with technology most of the day, so if you can hear ambient noise, let me know and I will close my window. I turned the fan off so that we could hear okay. But if you're hearing the outside, if you're hearing like motorcycles or things like that, let me know and I will close the window as well. My microphone doesn't want to stay up. So we'll see how everything goes today. I am sending huge hugs and love out to Krumel. A lot of you guys know him. He has had a death of somebody close to him and is struggling with his grief. And so let's send him lots of light and love and prayers and hugs and all that good stuff. And so he will be back with us when he is able to. So sending out Krumel, I hope that you'll get through this as easily as possible, as easy as grief of somebody close to you can be. So Crystal, you've been getting some things done today. Good. Heading into the city tomorrow. Okay, well, best for you for the trip and for also everything that will come with being in the city, because I know you generally have a lot of appointments when you do that. Excuse me, I'm rearranging a few things. So I thought about, what to talk about today. And, I've been reading through what I've written for my book chapter already. And so I've been kind of immersed in my childhood and my memories from that. Had a long talk with my mom about my childhood and kind of her memories of my childhood, what I remembered of my childhood, and realized, I do have significant gaps with my childhood memories. There's like distinct moments in time that I remember, and then there's just huge swaths where I don't remember much. Like I don't remember interacting with my brother or things that we might have done or arguments. I don't remember doing anything ever with like my dad. I don't remember arts and crafts time with my mom, or there's so many gaps. And so I was exploring this, and it's an interesting phenomena because you find a lot of people with PTSD, not complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, or disorder, but just PTSD. They will remember the sources of their trauma extremely well and have vivid recall of their trauma. And that's not necessarily the case for people with CPTSD. It certainly can be, but there's so much more to CPTSD than these singular events, right? Traumatic events in our life. That's why it's complex. It's trauma that accumulates over time. And so neglect and emotional abuse, if you're dealing with narcissistic parents or parents who are just emotionally unavailable, if you're dealing with dysfunction within the family, if you're, like my parents were at each other's throats like 24/7. That's what I remember. I don't remember before I was, say, 9 or 10, them fighting, but I just have this sense of them always being just an acrimonious environment, right, that we grew up in. Hey, Tommy, I hope you're doing well tonight. I hope you're enjoying your evening. And so it got me thinking about, our memories and how and why we remember certain things about our childhood and don't remember other things. And in regards to CPTSD, there's several different factors that can affect how we remember our childhood and what pieces of our childhood that we remember. First and foremost is, when did your trauma occur? Over what kind of timeline? Did it start very early on in childhood? Did it not start until, later on, say 6, 7, 8, or a little bit later? And the reason that that's important is the hippocampus in our brain is the part of our brain that's responsible for storing memories and allowing memory storage to happen. And that develops most significantly from the time that, say, pre-5 or pre-6. And if we're not in an environment that is conducive to growth, healthy support, that can damage our ability for our hippocampus to actually develop properly. And therefore, it is going to affect our ability to form memories. And so that's, partially related to why we might have fragmented memories, not remembering certain sections, why we might remember other sections. It fundamentally alters our neural pathways and our brain connections and our ability to actually keep those memories. So trauma also affects our bodies by trying to protect ourselves. And this is something that, we've spoken about in the past, that especially those bigger instances of trauma, if it's too overwhelming to our body's going to try and protect ourselves. And that's why we might not remember a certain circumstance or a period of time, because our body's like, that's just too much. And so it tries to bury those memories and compartmentalize them somewhere else, or it may delete them totally as a protection mechanism for yourself. And so that may be a reason as to why you don't remember certain portions of your childhood. Going along with that, the more traumatic our situations are, whether they're short-term trauma or whether it's this extensive trauma that just, builds and builds along our childhood, we can often dissociate from our memories. And I'm not talking about dissociation in terms of like split personalities, where you're just, you have one part of yourself that's present for the trauma, and then your core part that comes out when it's safe. But it can happen on a smaller level, where your brain is going to distort your ability to be able to recall your memories, because again, it's a protection mechanism. And it says, okay, you can look at this, but that memory might not be very vivid. You might remember only a feeling, or you might just remember where you were, and you don't remember anybody else that was there. You might remember a certain instance. When you try to pull anything else around that, it's kind of like pulling on an invisible thread. There's something there, but you can't quite get it. You can't quite grasp it. And so that's, your body's way of, again, protecting. And as I spoke with the deletion, our body can also totally suppress those memories. Sometimes we can get those back later on in life, once we're on our healing journey and we're feeling safe. And we may not really feel safe, but our body says, okay, you're in a good enough space. Yeah, I'll allow this stuff to come to the forefront. And these are repressed memories. And it doesn't always need hypnosis. I think a lot of us growing up in the 80s, the 90s, finding out about repressed memories through hypnosis. Therapists were big into this, and this is where the false memory came from, and where therapists planting information. People became very skeptical of the fact as to whether you could actually recall trauma that you had forgotten. Could you really forget trauma like that? And the answer is 100% yes, because your brain has stored it away in such a manner that you can't access it. Georgie says, I think maybe I'd rather not remember more than she already does. And, that's okay. And one of the things I want to talk about with all of this and memories too, is we don't have to remember absolutely everything that happened to us in order to heal. I've spoken many times about how my first instance of abuse, I don't remember exactly what happened. I just have some vague sense of what probably happened. I have the emotional feel from it. Um, I have some of the trauma that I suffered as a result of that, not liking stuff in front of my face, having nightmares for a while afterwards. But I don't have to know every single detail in order to be able to heal from that. I have enough to know something happened. It was bad. It's something that shouldn't have happened. And then dealing with that and dealing with coping skills in order to move past it, put it in its right perspective in order to live a better life now. I think that when we start talking about memories that we've forgotten, especially when it comes in forms of trauma, that we can't heal from something unless we know exactly what happened. And that's not the case for us. So I want to encourage all of you to keep going on your healing journeys and don't try and force memories. If they come, they'll come. But if they never do, that's okay too. We can still learn to live with where we are right now. And we can put enough pieces together from how we feel now, from how from what we know of our family unit as it is now, as it was before. Don't ask me why my coloring keeps flicking in and out. I haven't a clue. Like I said, this is my first time with our new setup. So we're not buffering. So I'm considering that a win for today. And hugs and love going out to you, Deidre. I know that you've been having a tough time as well. So hugs and love to everybody out there who needs it for whatever reason that you do. Hey, Misha, how are you doing? No worries, girl. Hugs and love to you as well. I think that a lot of us have been in a difficult place these last few months for a whole host of reasons. And, that's why we're here. We're here for each other. And take what you need from it, and we'll be here if and when you feel like you want to, join the chat more fully. It's totally okay. Like I say, you can watch these videos and you may never join in the chat, and that's all right as well. You do what feels comfortable to you. One of the other ways that our brain protects us with our memories is through something called emotional numbing. So we may remember an instance, but we have a hard time getting our arms around how that affected us. When we sit with our thoughts and feelings, we don't have a sense of, well, that was bad. I felt awful. I was fearful. You just don't have the emotions surrounding it. And again, that's our brain's way of protecting ourselves from things that it might otherwise feel overwhelmed by it. So it might let you have the mental picture of something, but it either removes the emotions or dampens them to the point where you only remember certain pieces. You can remember how you felt afterwards or maybe before, but how you felt in the moment is not there. One of the really interesting things that I found out from a scientific standpoint was that, as we all know, trauma creates heightened stress levels, right? We're in fight or flight, freeze, fawn. There's about 6 of them all told, but it increases our stress levels to the point where they generally don't go down. And particularly for those of us with CPTSD, over our childhood, we had those heightened consistently. And they never really got a chance to our stress levels to kind of return to baseline, particularly if you were dealing with chronic emotional neglect or emotional abuse or physical abuse or sexual abuse. Heightened stress, it releases cortisol, right? And then we call it the stress hormone. And one of the things I found out is that these heightened cortisol levels over time can actually shrink the hippocampus. Again, that part of our brain that's responsible for memory. So over time, we may remember less. Our ability to remember things may decrease. And this can follow us into adulthood if our stress levels, if that fight or flight is, still on high alert or medium alert. And so as that hippocampus shrinks, it becomes more difficult. And so one of the things that is fairly common with trauma survivors who have not dealt with their trauma at all, and they're still in that heightened state, is their memory for just, ordinary everyday things can decrease. And it's just because of how your hippocampus is at that particular moment. And this is something I hadn't even considered. And I started thinking about it. And, there's certain times in my adult life when I did have a decreased stress level, my baseline. I wasn't in that fight or flight as consistent as I had in childhood, or that I was later on when I really started delving into my history and trying to figure out my place in the world and healing from my trauma and getting to a better place. And looking at those time periods and kind of correlating them to the time periods where I was at more of a normal baseline in terms of stress level and what I can remember from those time periods versus those time periods where I was heightened and increased. And I don't know if this is something that you guys have experienced. I know I've spoken with some of you individually about the ability to recall childhood memories, and a lot of us have difficulty with, huge swaths of it. And not just the trauma itself, but just basic childhood. Just, when did I learn to ride a bike, or what was my favorite toy, or, all of those kind of childhood memories that if you're sitting around with a whole group of people that other people may be able to remember and have lots of recall on, and you're sitting there scratching your head going, I don't know. Hey, Indigo, how are you? Hi, Cosmic. Good to see you. I only have 2 USB ports on my new laptop, so I can't have my mouse going at the same time. So I'm still kind of learning to use the trackpad on my new one. So bear with me as I try and navigate that and navigate over to your comments as well. Crystal says, I've learned that our minds in some way shut down at the age of our first trauma. And when we get into therapy, we need to grow from that age until we are the same age as our bodies. Therapy, it's really interesting. And some of the research as I was going through this and looking at how we can recover from trauma, because I always kind of had the thought as well of, well, we have to work through our trauma, right? And if you can't remember your trauma, how are you going to work through that? Now realizing that there are other avenues for working through that trauma other than having that specific memory. But I do think that there is a lot that can be said for doing inner child work that we may not remember individual instances of trauma. And I'll take my case, like all the fighting and the lack of association with some of my family members, the lack of shared experiences. One of the things that was talked about was that social isolation and shared experiences is something that is important for us in terms of building memories and being able to retain memories. It's almost like if you don't have somebody to share them with, or if you're not connecting with somebody else, your brain thinks, well, it's just not as important. And it kind of goes by the wayside. Except I'm no expert in any of this. So this is kind of stuff that I've cobbled together. And there are definitely people out there who know much more than I do about this area. But that struck me because of looking at my own experiences in not remembering like all the fighting, but just knowing in my heart that every day was a battlefield, right? Coming home to hide, to find something to amuse myself because I didn't have friends. I didn't connect with other kids. It was really difficult for me. I didn't have social skills, and part was because of the trauma, part because I didn't really have that support in terms of helping to nurture those relationships and figuring out my way in that world. I was kind of left to my own devices. And so it made a lot of sense to me that I might not then, it made a lot of sense to me as to why I didn't remember huge chunks of time or, specifics to go with things. And it really came to light when I was talking with my mom, as I was like, okay, let's take this house by house. So, we moved every 3 years. So it's like, okay, this house, this house, this house. What do I remember from this house? I remember this, 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 and this. And I would say fill in the blanks around that. You know, what else did I do? What did we do as a family? How was I? And I nothing else rung a bell. Nothing else that was being talked about, came up for me. And significantly with speaking with my brother, I mean, no doubt we're all individuals, and so how we were raised, our individual personalities all have an effect on how we remember things. But his recollection of childhood and just of me in it, and or his recollection, say, of our parents and what that interaction was like, is so different just because of things that he remembers that it's just a blank slate. It's like looking into the void. I have that emotional sense, but nothing else. Thanks for the tip, Indigo. I might consider it. Like I said, I just got drivers updated and was able to get the webcam working and my audio working today. So I think I'm still working through things that it needs to update. Unfortunately, this didn't come with really an instruction manual. It came with like a little warranty thing. It came with an initial setup, which was basically plug it in and follow the prompts. And that was pretty much it. So I've been flying blind on everything else and having to figure out what things mean. And I'm not the most tech savvy person out there anymore. I used to think I was pretty good when I was, younger, but that was, basics. Yeah, I haven't noticed any buffering, you guys. So cross our fingers, at least the new equipment seems to be working okay. I'll have to get the webcam focused a little bit more. I don't know why the picture's kind of going in and out between being like normal color and then all of a sudden I look like really red and then it kind of comes back into focus. I'm not sure what that is about. But I was reading that there was an issue with the webcam in Windows 11. So if I have future issues, there might be some things that I need to do. And there's a bunch of people who have put out workarounds around that. So we'll see how things go. And that could be, auto zoom. It could be. Generally, I have everything manual, or at least I did before. So I'm not actually working this through the software like I would before because I couldn't get the cam and the software that I downloaded, the driver software, to work. But so I'm not really sure how we're working right now. I'm not sure if I'm working through the webcam or if I'm just mirroring because I have my screen mirrored from the laptop to the monitor that I'm looking at right now. So I'm not sure. I might actually be working off of its camera. I may not even be working off of the actual webcam at this moment. So I'll keep playing around with it. So who knows what Saturday will bring. Might have learned a few things by then, and I'm hoping my son will have a little bit of time to spare since this was his webcam, help me with that and get everything coordinated. So that is really the topic for tonight. I mean, it's kind of a quick topic, but it was something that was on my mind and something that I was thinking about a lot and trying to figure this out, and looking at my healing journey in the terms of the pieces that I feel I still need to work through, writing the book chapter has really kind of helped crystallize pieces that I feel that I've gotten a handle on and that I've worked through, and other aspects of my CPTSD that I still need to work on. Specifically for me, my instances of trauma based on sexual abuse, I feel like I have a real good handle on those. I spent a lot of time focused on that. And because it wasn't really until, maybe a few years ago, couple years ago, that I realized that I have CPTSD, that all this other stuff that I went through in childhood, my parents, for as caring and as loving of parents as they are, they did the best they could with what they had and with what they knew. And I'm definitely have to deal with some fallout from that. And not that I hold any ill will or angst or negative feelings towards them, but just the effect that that's had on me in adulthood, what I've carried through from childhood to adulthood in terms of attachment styles, in terms of how I interact with other people, in terms of how I think about myself. Those are still areas that I'm certainly working through. So my healing journey hasn't ended. And, I walk this path with you guys. Yeah, I may need a new camera. That's possible too. Hopefully my project ended on Friday. I'm hoping we're supposed to be back to work today, but that doesn't look like it happened. There's another project that might start tomorrow, so I'm hoping to be back to work with that. So we're still kind of taking it week by week, financial wise, to get to a place of stability and be back to where I can do those things and can afford those little extras in life. It's taken a real toll on me, having being in such a financially secure place, of at least knowing that my basic bills are covered for so long. These last few months have really shaken me, and the reliance on other people for what I know I can provide given the opportunity, and given being in a good mental state. As I said, I've gone back up on my meds. So I am feeling much better from that. And I think that as soon as I'm able to land a new project, that I'll be able to work the hours that I need to be able to see that. It's just a matter of that coming through and stabilizing. And I've been exploring some other things for jobs that might add a little bit more stability for me as well, that won't conflict with legal work that I do. If I'm looking hot, guys, it's because I don't have the fan on and it is just really boiling up in my office today. So if I'm looking a bit peaked, it's because I am. Hi, Joe Town. How are you doing? Glad to see you today. So a week from this coming Friday, so in 10 days, my book chapter is due. Wish me luck, people. Yeah, as soon as I get off this live, that fan is going on, and I'll actually probably step outside for a few minutes because, believe it or not, it's a little cooler outside than it is in my office. It's always so much hotter upstairs. And since not having AC in the house, I'm realizing where the sun comes in at what times and where I need to make sure that the curtains are closed, because I may close them and the cats will open them. So I know the places now that I need to make sure. It's like, oh, 3 o'clock's here. I need to make sure the upstairs blinds are shut and the curtains pulled close and that the cats haven't gotten to it again, because otherwise that sun streaming through, it comes straight down the hall and into my office, and it's just like, whoa. No, my air conditioner is broken and I can't afford to fix it right now. So we're dealing the summer without it. But hey, we've made it halfway through, so I think we're doing all right. You know, it's been challenging, but the evenings have been fairly cool, so it stays okay. And as long as I have the fan on, it hasn't been too terrible. And I've been able to work on my laptop through the one job that I was doing, so I could work downstairs as well. My other requires the PC for the company that was given, so I really do need to work in my office. So if I do start that one here in the next day or two, I'll be stuck back in my office. But I have learned a lot of tips in terms of just keeping an ice pack on my belly with the fan blowing on me. It's pretty good. We're just going. I love blackout curtains. Indigo, Deaudrey, you both mentioned blackout curtains. I could not survive migraines without blackout curtains. I have them in my bedroom. I actually have them in the office. There's only one window here, but because it used to be my son's room, I have blackout curtains there. And I do have blackout curtains at the end of the hallway where that sun streams in, but the cats also love to go and sit in it. And so when they go and sit in it, they move that curtain over. And even if it's 6 inches of that sun streaming, it just can really raise the temperature here. So we're managing, and we'll make it through the rest of it. You know, I have a feeling that on hold this year will end up fairly good. You know, I'm trusting in the universe that what I'm going through now is preparing me for maybe appreciating when I do get on more stable ground, you know, appreciating it even more. I never took it for granted. I was never one to have to excess. But I'm able to, I think, empathize with others who have been in this position more often than I have, on a much deeper level than I was able to before. It's scary not knowing if you're going to be able to pay your rent, or, you know, if you can afford to pay that next bill that's coming up. And I know that I'm very fortunate that I have some people around me who have some resources who've been able to help me out. But yeah, on an emotional level, that's been very difficult to deal with. And I think that's part of my learning journey. In dealing with myself and dealing with how I feel about myself. So I won't regret it. Things, I do believe things happen for a reason for the most part. At least I try to have that attitude. And it'll be interesting in December to kind of look back at the year, and especially this last half of the year, and see how these experiences in June and July and probably August affected me for the remaining portion. So crossing my fingers for you, Crystal. I hope that you get some good information. Let us know. Let us know how things go. I know that med changes are never easy, and it's, sometimes even when we do get them changed, we don't find out for a few weeks as to how effective things have been for us as well. So wishing you the best with that. Saturday, I'm still a little up in the air about what I'm going to cover. I've got a couple of ideas, and I'm hoping by Friday at latest to have a thumbnail up with what I'm going to cover for that. Especially if I'm not working again tomorrow, I'm really planning on digging deep into that, kind of working on my chapter and getting the book or getting the laptop set up have been priority for me for now. So more work on the laptop, getting that set up. I got to make sure that I've got everything off of the other laptop. My son's gonna put it back to, I think, factory reset and clean everything off of it and see if there's anything he can salvage, or, at least if it's working well enough for what he needs it for. He's got his PC for most things, but we'll see what becomes of it once he removes all of my stuff, and I think a lot of extra stuff that he had loaded onto it in the first couple of years that he had it. I will, Indigo. Thank you very much for offering. I appreciate it. I definitely, I really want to have this done by Monday to feel fairly comfortable with where I am on Monday, that I don't need to add anything, that I don't need to take away much, so that some people can read it and give feedback on it. Hopefully not have huge amounts of comments that require a lot of rework, but I'll do whatever I have to, because it's just that important to me. And I'm not really sure we've got one other writing session, I think, next week, or maybe the 25th. I'm not sure. Maybe Friday. That got rescheduled. It might be Monday. As to what's going to happen afterwards, because I know they'll have their professional editors will be proofreading and, doing stuff like that. But I don't know what kind of feedback that they're going to have, if any. So I think I'll find that at my next co-writing session. Hey, LV, how you doing? I hope you're doing well tonight. You're counting down the days for your retirement. I hope that that's going well for you. It is, Crystal, it is really hard that sometimes to admit to ourselves that we're struggling. And a lot of times, depending on what's causing our struggles or how our struggles are going, it takes a while before we even notice it. Like when I was coming off those meds and day to day, I really thought that I was kind of doing okay. Like I did okay with the first step down. I did okay with the second step down. The last step down did not go very well. And now I'm kind of wondering if that those first two, if they went as well as I thought. If some of the things that I was struggling with was really because of not having, that extra little boost in my system. When it happens so gradually, sometimes it takes a while before we realize, no, I am really struggling. I have been kind of going downhill. So hugs and love to all of you. If we can practice just even a little bit of gratitude a day to try and focus on the positive, that's so important. You are right, DeAudrey. Your cat's blissfully happy. That is fabulous. I am thankful that without AC, our cats are still thriving. Don't ask me why. They still lay in the sunlight. I don't get it. They're covered in fur. I'd be absolutely miserable. But they're doing all right. My son is thriving. I'm still able to operate this channel. I still have this community who I can reach out to. And even when I'm struggling, you guys are there and you're lifting me up and willing me on. And I could not be more thankful for each and every one of you and what you guys have given me in terms of all the strength and the love and prayers from your side of things. So from me to you as well. So with that, I think we'll end for today. We're just shy of 7. I think I rambled for about a half an hour about absolutely nothing. At least it wasn't our topic, but join us Saturday at 3 p.m. for what? I'm not quite sure yet, but it'll be something related to our mental health, to trauma, to some intersection of the two. And remember that you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are, for who you are. Something I should probably tell myself a little more often. Hugs and love from me, guys. Surviving together, never alone. And bear with me as I reach over myself to get to the end stream. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Mm.